guys, welcome back to the NewsNowNation channel. Today we're talking to Mr. Jhonson Thomas, who is the founder and one of the chief members of an NGO called AASRA, which works towards suicide prevention. And today we're going to talk to him about suicides, about mental health, and about some external circumstances and external policy that is likely to affect mental health and is likely to cause suicides as well. So thank you so much, sir, for doing this, for taking the time to talk to us. We are very grateful.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So just to start with, can you tell me a little bit about AASRA and how it came about?
AASRA is a crisis intervention center for suicide prevention. And basically what we do is we provide telephonic counseling, telephonic listening service, which is a kind of alleviation of distress through talk therapy. So what we do is we help people come out of the suicidal ideation by talking about the crisis that they're going through, allowing them to express more in detail about what their feelings and emotions are about the crisis that they're going through. So in a way, it alleviates the tension and the stress on them, and they're able to think better after the conversation because then their mind is much more clearer. And they know, they probably find a better way of handling their problems after that.
Correct.
So AASRA was started in 1998, September. And,
wow. That's my birth year and month.
Oh, wow. So we're the same age.
Yeah. AASRA and me. Yes.
Yeah, AASRA and you, yeah. So basically, the reason why we started at that point was because we were located in New Bombay, and there were a lot of suicides happening among students at that point of time. And there wasn't any service that was helping this kind of a problem to be taken care of. So we got together a group of people, like-minded people got together, and we set up an NGO. And we followed the UK model, that's the Samaritans UK model, which is just offering listening therapy through telephonic service. So that's what we started with, and we followed the same model, and we asked them for help for all kinds of support systems, as in how to go about getting volunteers and training them and those kind of things. So we got their help, and we set up, and then we actually started with only around 30 volunteers, and we had around 3 hours of service at that point initially, because we were not very sure how well it would be received. Because at that point, I don't think people were very ready to talk about their problems over the telephone. It was not that easy. So it was like getting them to change a habit or develop a new habit. So so initially, it took a lot of time to build up the service, and it took around 6 years before we could set up a 24/7 helpline. And once we got 24/7, and we got a lot more people willing to tune into our service and seek help, we were able to, give more support to people in that sense. So it's been a long journey. It's been a tough journey. Because we are a totally voluntary organization. We don't have any paid staff, and we don't have funds. So we work on the largest of people and the goodwill of people, and especially volunteers who are giving a lot of time and effort for this service. So we're grateful to the volunteers for having supported us for this long, and we're grateful to the callers for trying to seek help from us.
Awesome. Yeah. And I do think that, the benefits of therapy have come, and talk therapy specifically have come to the forefront right now. And specifically in the younger generation of students now, the amount of awareness about mental health, the awareness about therapy is much higher. But I think at that point, to bring up a concept like this is fairly revolutionary, because talking about your feelings was not considered something, especially in men, if I'm not wrong, it was considered something that was a little stigmatized.
Absolutely. Actually, even culturally, we're not very geared up to talking about feelings. I mean, even if women talk about feelings, they would talk to each other. They wouldn't talk to someone they
Correct.
don't know. And talking to an anonymous person who they don't know, and initially it was a big issue because
Correct.
the, it's an unknown quantity, it's an unknown entity, and you don't know what you're going to get from there. So
Correct.
it took a lot. It took a lot of persuasion. It took a lot of skill to get people to talk about their problems initially. But afterwards, once the newspapers and all started putting it out there, we did a lot of groundwork in terms of talking to people on the road, and trying and telling them about our service, and that kind of joining up with a lot of events so that the service got a lot more face value in that
Correct.
sense,
And recognition. Yeah.
recognition, and so that way we built up the service. So it was a lot of hard work,
Yeah.
but now it's paying off, I guess.
Awesome. Awesome. I think it's really, really important. As a country, we have, oh, I don't think our suicide rate is one we can be proud of, unfortunately. And we have one of the higher ones in the world. Why do you think,
Absolutely.
why do you
Suicide rate
think,
is pretty high.
um,
uh, I think we're ranked within the first 10 in the
yeah,
world. So we do have a high suicide rate. Obviously, we also have a large population, which is also one of the causes. So that's also the reason.
correct. So, just in an Indian context, what over the past, now 22 years, um, how has the entire attitude towards suicide prevention and also the attitude towards mental health in general taken a shift? Do you see that it has taken a shift? Do you see the causes shift? Do you see the kind of conversations, differ?
Yeah, initially when we started, there was no conversation around mental health. Suicide was a taboo topic, and most people would hide it. And even if someone attempted suicide or committed suicide or died by suicide, there wouldn't be. I mean, papers might report, might not report. Uh, it was a crime, so people were penalized for attempting suicide. The cops used to visit your house. There was a case filed against you, and all that happened. And so it wasn't easy to deal with suicide at that point.
Correct.
But over the years, with a lot more people talking about it, with a lot more celebrities, because of celebrity suicides also. I mean, it's because of celebrity suicides that celebrities have started talking about
Yeah.
mental health issues and mental health problems, and
Correct.
because of which a lot more mileage has been gained for the mental health service. So in a sense, the milestones have shifted from not talking about suicide and mental health to now tentatively talking about suicide and mental health. Though it's still not full blown, it's still not everyone willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's still very few people coming out and speaking about it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but celebrities have done a great job. I mean, they've been talking about their mental health issues, and
Yeah.
not only in India, also abroad. So that makes it much more easier for the common man to identify with their own issues and
Correct.
problems, and put it out there in front of their families. Though there's not much support even today in India for
Yeah.
mental health, even though it's decriminalized. Suicide has been decriminalized, and but it's still not decriminalized on the ground, because even today in certain places, if someone attempts suicide, it still becomes a case because that's not percolated to the ground. So
Correct. So
so
just
it's still a question. Yeah.
uh, yeah. So when we talk about suicide, obviously there is a lot of research that has gone into it internationally by extremely trained psychologists and psychiatrists. And there are obviously two aspects to it. One is your internal battle, which is something that many, I think, in India especially, is ignored. Oftentimes, because they always believe that there is an external cause that can be blamed, whereas your mental health is often an internal struggle and you cannot really pinpoint a cause that easily. But also, there are many times when you are living in abject poverty probably, or in abject pain, then there are situations where external circumstances can also affect your mental health. How does this balance work, and especially in the Indian context, how do you think it looks?
See, in India, culturally, we are not allowed to talk about mental health because it's kind of a weakness. It's
Correct.
taken as a weakness, and most families will frown down on you and tell you that no, you should have enough willpower to overcome this, or you're just lazy, or you're not doing enough.
Correct.
Those are the tags that you're
Correct.
labeled with when you express some kind of mental health issue.
Hmm.
Uh, so culturally, that is shifting to a large extent, but it's still not moved to the point where you're free to talk about mental health completely without any judgment or without any criticism.
Correct.
Uh, talking about mental health is not an easy aspect, and plus the fact that uh, mental health is affected by a lot of factors. It's not just internal. I mean, it's external also, and there's a psychosocial, environmental, psychological, physical, and basically everything affects your mental health. Everything can affect your mental health.
Absolutely.
Everything that is around you can affect your mental health. Plus the fact that your internal makeup is not strong enough to battle those challenges that you're
Correct.
facing.
Correct.
There's actually the reason why we come to this point is also because uh, the kind of shifting that has happened in terms of conditioning. Uh, Earlier, the conditioning was whatever happens, you've got to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And our parents and all dealt with much tougher situations than we are faced with today.
Hmm.
And they came up trumps and they did well with their lives, and they managed to
Yeah.
overcome all the difficulties that they faced. Whereas today's generation has had it a much easier because most of them come from nuclear families, and they're much more self-oriented, and those nuclear family oriented. So they're not interested in your relatives. You're not interested in what's happening around you or helping them with their problems. You're only interested in yourself. And even parents are also inculcating that kind of a habit with their children. So
Correct.
what is happening is children think that it's their bounden right to get whatever they demand. They don't need to work for it. They don't need to struggle for it. It's
Hmm.
something that should come to them easily,
Hmm.
because of which it creates a lot of problems. So failure is not considered permissible. So children today are not capable of dealing with failure or rejection for that matter.
Yeah.
So these are the two aspects that really affect mental health in today's generation: failure and rejection. And that can happen in all walks of life. So when you read the papers, you'll find father denied son a mobile and son committed suicide, or mother said don't go for a party and son commit or daughter committed suicide, whatever. That's the kind of trigger that happens today because the conditioning has failed us.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I see it around me, and the way people deal with rejection has everything is taken a lot more personally. I think also,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, business rejections, rejections in the
Yeah.
workplace, romantic rejections, they're all taken to be a very defining part of your personality. And it's very, very common. You're very right when you say that. Um, Moving, but I mean, it is also, I think, a little difficult to deal with, because it is also, I feel like this generation is also being constantly told that they have very high expectations to achieve, and every minute is a competition for them. And because they have been constantly told this by their parents, by their teachers, by people around them, they're constantly on a spree to achieve, which is why I think that also contributes to sort of them thinking that, oh my god, one failure is going to set me back these many years, and everything is a lot more calculated.
Yeah, but that's also because it's a kind of a tunneled ambition, right? I mean, earlier there was no such thing. I mean, you had a free world where you could just do whatever you wanted, and you just had to earn money to support the
Yeah,
family. That was
yeah,
the main agenda. It wasn't about how high you go in your career. It was more about earning enough money to support your family.
correct.
So people moved out to different locations and started working away from your family and then send money back and all that. All
Yeah,
that happened. But today, what happens is it's basically tunnel vision. You parents give you set you a goal, or you set yourself a goal, and you said, okay, this is what I want to achieve, and I want it immediately. So uh, so whatever you do, you want to make money as soon as possible. It's not
correct,
about struggling to make money. It's about, no, I need to make money, come what may, or I need to achieve that career goal, come what may.
correct,
And
correct.
that's why you start when failure happens. I mean, there's no way you can avoid failure,
Mhm.
and that's something that's something that's intrinsic to any kind of growth. And if you don't accept that failure happens, or if you don't accept that rejection happens, then your mind is fractured. You're not really living in the real world. You're living in a very fantasy oriented world where you expect everything to happen according to your will, and it doesn't happen that way. no one no
Absolutely.
one can no one can achieve anything without failure or rejection.
Yeah, no, you're right. When we look at the generation that is slightly older, where we are still seeing a lot of suicides, of men who, especially, the reason I say men is because statistically, men commit suicide more than men die by suicide more than women do. Um, there is still a really large chunk of men who obviously have not been trained to talk about their feelings, have not been trained to talk about anything that makes them even slightly vulnerable or have any emotional release, and they have a lot of external circumstances, external policies that are sort of affecting them. Specifically, something that is happening very common, in fact it's in the news recently, is men who are committing suicide because of financial troubles, and because of debt, and because of loans, and because of the lack of the ability to pay back loans. I think obviously there's that entire chunk of farmers, but it's not just that. It is much beyond that. So how does, like, I mean, what suppose somebody calls and there are financial troubles, which is a very clear external problem. It's not an internal journey. How do you talk about that, and how do you sort of navigate through that situation?
See, firstly, you need to understand where it's coming from. Culturally, men are taught not to express emotions, not to be vulnerable, not to cry about things,
Yeah,
and they have to be the breadwinner. So those are responsibilities that are heaped on them right from
yeah,
generations. It's not
correct,
it's not just your parents telling you that. It's
absolutely,
it's like it's a generational thing. So there's a lot of responsibility, and men also feel that they should be the breadwinner. So when women start becoming a little bit more equal in their rights and a little bit more equal in the way they become breadwinners too, and when they start asserting themselves, men start feeling a little complexed about it,
correct,
because uh, their self worth is being harmed. In their mind, it's their self worth that's being harmed
yeah,
by a woman being more assertive, or a woman starting to earn more money, or starting to do things which were basically their prerogative earlier on in life. So that's the psyche change that happens, and today in every family you'll find that. I mean, there's always a tug of war between a man and a woman. I
yeah,
mean, between a husband and a wife. I mean, if the
yeah,
wife is earning more, then there's always going to be a lot of pull, and there's a lot of tug of war between the husband and wife, because it's very rare that you'll find someone who's really understanding and who's taken a back seat and said, okay, I am willing to accept that my wife is earning more, she's more qualified, or she's doing better in life than me. And anyway, we are supposed to be together, and it's a joint effort, whatever we do.
correct,
But that's not happening by and large
correct,
in most families. So there's an ego issue. There's lots of complex generational conditioning that's happened, and that's also affecting the mindset of men. And like you said, men commit suicide, successfully commit suicide more than women, because though women attempt suicide more. Uh, so men commit suicide. That's also because they choose means which are much more sure to
Hmm.
end their lives. So that's why men commit suicide more. Uh, and the as far as the failure to provide finances to their family, like I said, the pressure on men to provide for the family is much more. And
Yeah.
because of the laws are like slightly skewed in favor of women today, because of the spousal violence issues and dowry bills. Uh, so a lot of these issues exaggerate because when the finances are crucial at that point, what happens is there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of anger, there's lots of, and then violence erupts.
Yeah.
And when violence erupts, the wife usually ends up filing a case against the husband and leaves. And that's usually what's happening today in a
Correct.
large number of cases.
Correct.
And then it's about him paying for restitution for whatever happened. So that's a long process. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of today you find a lot of men getting being on the wrong side of the law
Hmm.
because of that. The other thing is the apps, the financial apps that are plaguing the finance sector today. What they usually do is and these are small borrowings. They're just 2,000 rupees or 1,000 rupees
Hmm.
or 5,000 rupees that people take as loans. But what they do usually is they want you to repay it back in 2 weeks or 1 week's time,
Hmm.
which a person who doesn't even have 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 rupees is not going to be able to pay.
Correct.
So the app guys know this. It's a business that they're very sure that they'll make money out of. So
Correct.
what these people who are in debt for 1,000 or 2,000 rupees do is they go to another app and seek another 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees to repay the first loan.
Hmm.
Then that also doesn't get done. So then the third app, then the fourth app. So it becomes a vicious circle which they fall into. It's a trap, and they come to a point where they can't pay off the loan, and they come to a point where they can't take any more loans from anyone else, and that's also one reason why suicide happens. Because and these are small amounts. It's not like a large amount. It's not like in crores, or not
Yeah.
like the NPA defaults.
Correct.
So so it's really sad that people are falling prey to this kind of I can't call it a scam because it's a legitimate business that's happening. But they're preying on
It is a predatory
susceptible mind.
business,
Yeah,
nonetheless.
it's a predatory. Absolutely, it's predatory, and it's preying on the vulnerable and the
Yeah.
distressed.
No, absolutely. And I think, I mean, there is a long, I mean, specifically because you said there are such small amounts, and the fact that these people don't have those small amounts just goes to show that the section of society that is falling prey is a very, very vulnerable section of society. Um,
Absolutely,
and which is
because
why,
they're basically taking loans for their existence.
yeah,
It's not even as if they're taking loans
absolutely. They have to,
for some luxury car or something like that. It's not. It's just to have food on the table.
yeah, absolutely. And it's true that entire it's almost like it's a shark tank, and they're being preyed
Absolutely,
on.
it is. Yeah, yeah, it
And
is. It's totally it's predatory, and it's a shark tank. Absolutely, like you said, it's perfectly said.
it can be a very, very dangerous game. I think, you spoke about 2 points which, as we go towards the concluding portion of this conversation, I'd like to bring up again. You spoke about how, women are, rising through the ranks, as we speak, and with every passing day they're becoming more equal. And And you're right, it is making men uncomfortable. It is probably affecting their mental health. But obviously, the solution to that isn't that women take the back seat. The solution to that is, I think, education, probably, and just instilling different values and breaking that generational cycle. Of course, it is a long way to go, but we can only hope that different spaces and different conversations ignite um, a more sense of equality, and to the point where they do not derive their worth from their financial power, men specifically. And also that specifically among the most vulnerable class of society that needs loans to exist, um, we educate them financially and we make India a more financially literate country, because I don't see how else we can, without tackling the roots, how else we can move towards a more mentally sound and a more survivor based country.
Absolutely. I guess that's an ideal that we should all aim for. And I know it's going to be difficult. It's not easy. We have a huge population to feed. And almost 60 to 70% of our population is, economically weak and not able to provide for three meals a day. So it's not that easy to overcome this problem. Uh, so where men and women are concerned, I guess education alone will not help. I think women should take the upper hand here, and because women are mothers, right? I mean, it's the
Yeah.
mother that perpetuates the conditioning also in the
Uh-huh.
family.
Yeah.
So the mother should take the lead and start teaching their sons and daughters to be equal right from childhood. If
Absolutely.
that doesn't happen, if the mother starts being playing favorites with either child, then it's always going to be an unequal society. So that should start from childhood itself, and the mother should take the lead. And if that happens, then obviously it will change. The whole society will change. The way the society views men and women or gender will completely change. So there
Absolutely.
can be a change, but education alone is not going to do anything, because we've seen how education doesn't really do much. It teaches you a lot, but our kind of education is not experiential. It's more rote learning.
Yeah.
So nothing is ingrained. It's all okay. You by heart it and you throw it out. That's it. It's not something that really you inculcate from knowledge.
No, you're right. And I think that's a really great point about mothers, because I often see mothers being some of the most problematic people towards their own sons, because they are putting so much pressure on them to be successful in terms of finances, and also making them really entitled in some ways to
Absolutely,
certain
absolutely.
behavior from a woman, because
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
what was expected from them.
From them, yeah.
So they think, yes, my son deserves the same from whoever he marries or whoever he dates also sometimes. So
Absolutely. As a mother-in-law, as a mother, the mother is the one who can make the effort to change the society. So,
absolutely, absolutely. All right. I think this was a really useful conversation. Thank you so much for talking to us. We look forward to having more conversations with you about mental health in the future. And we hope these conversations will reach some of the people we're trying to target and create that shift we spoke about. So thank you so much, sir, for doing this. We're really, really grateful for your time. Anything else you would like to add as we conclude?
yeah, thank you very much for having me here. And yeah, I'd just like to add one thing. You'd asked about how we tackle people who have loan defaults and call upon this on our distress helpline.
Yeah.
Basically, what we do is we tell them that they should not be afraid of the harassment that they are facing from the loan app people, because the minute you show fear, the loan app people are going to keep pounding you with much more,
Uh-huh.
so they can't do anything to you. They can't, for 5,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees, they're not going to file a case for sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they can't file a case. Even if they file a police case against you, they have to spend lot more money
Yeah.
against
Absolutely.
you. So there's no point. You should not worry about if you can't pay. Just tell them I will pay in so and so time, and you have to give me this time. You don't have any other choice, and neither do I have any other choice. So you give it in writing and tell them that I will pay, and be sure about paying back, because obviously if you're taking money, you need to pay
You
back
have to
the
pay
money.
it back. Yeah.
So fine. that's fine. But don't worry about it to such an extent that you're going to commit suicide or think of suicide as an option. Don't allow them to plague your mind. And if they're harassing you, just disconnect the phone and keep it off for some time, because it's all loan apps all through the phone. And you can disconnect the phone. You have the right to disconnect your phone and keep it off. Also, uh, the loan app guys, also what they do is basically what they have is they have a call center harassing you for everything.
Hmm.
So the call center harasses you and say your contacts are all with us. We'll send out messages and we'll call each and everyone from your contact list and tell them that you're a defaulter and you're a chore and you're this and you're that. And so the person who's taking the loan, who's stressed out because he can't repay the loan, is even more stressed out because all his contacts come to know about his
Potential loss of
failure.
revenue.
And that's the main reason, that's the trigger point for him to commit suicide. So
Correct.
one thing you need to do is, before if at all the loan app guys threaten you and say that this is what they're going to do, you just inform all your contacts in your contact list that that's a scam that's happened, and these people have been they've infiltrated your contact list, and they might send you SMSs or they might call you up and tell you certain things, but you don't believe it. This is not true. I did borrow money from them, and I will repay the money back. That's all you need to do. You can save yourself. You don't need to end up committing suicide. Just remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, very important. And what we're also going to do is, in this video, we're going to put the helpline numbers and AASRA's website in the description. So if you know anybody who would benefit from having this number and this contact in their database, they can reach out and have this conversation. What you say is so right. Maybe I think it's so simple what he said, but it's sometimes in that moment of when your mind is plagued, as you said, it's very hard to remember these really simple things that it's okay, it's solvable, and this too shall pass. and
Absolutely.
and it's not worth ending your life over, because it's all you got. So all right, I think we're going to do all of that. And thank you so much, sir, for taking the time again. And we hopefully will have all these links and all these numbers in our description, and have more conversations about this in the future, so we can do our part to make India a more mentally healthy place to be in.
Yeah, a resilient place. Yes, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.